Hello, welcome to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal. I'm your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s till present, mostly large sharks. We're going to get started right away. We're going to head over to Mele Beach, which is Oahu, Hawaii. The date, December 3rd, 1952. Gerbacio Salano is 40 years old. He's one of 4 fishermen. They took a boat out. They're in the water. They have a net. They're laying a net out. And a shark shows up. Not any shark, a 20 to 22 foot shark, they say. And it made a run at Gerbacio and took a chunk out of his left arm, they say. Shark turned, come back. One of the other fishermen had already gotten to Gerbacio to try to help him out. The shark made a run at him. It says they missed, and the shark turned, came back, and the third time it took and severed his Gerbacio's arm below the elbow, and that was it for the attack. They ended up getting him out of the water, but he died of blood loss and shock. Sounds like it was probably a great white. It's either a great white or a tiger shark. Nothing else is going to get 20 feet, if it was 20 feet. And that's our attack. We're going to put it down as an attack and not an attempt to predate. Okay, now we're going to head over to Ecuador, to Turtle Beach, to date May 14th, 2013. Diego Intriago, he's 29 years old, and he's out doing some surfing with some friends. Clear water, they're out having a good time. The water is clear, but at the shore, the waves crashing in are kicking up the sand. So it's murky at the shore, but it's clear out where they're surfing. And a friend of his gets a wave in and starts paddling back out. When he gets back out to Diego, he tells him, I think something bumped my leg when I was in there, when I was in the shallows. So Diego, thinking nothing of it, another wave comes up, and Diego gets this wave, and he heads in. And when he gets done and the wave dies off, he falls into the water. And just as he's going to get back onto his board, he feels a clamp on his leg, so he starts beating on it. He says he was hitting it until it let go, and it let go. He grabs his board, he gets back up, and he lifts his leg up, and he says he definitely knew it was a shark just from the shape of the bite and from the blood from the wound, and he was able to paddle himself back in. They sewed him up. He ended up surviving. It's an attack. They say it's by a 2.5 meter Galapagos shark. Some of them say a black-tip reef shark. Some of them try to say a black-tip reef shark is a Galapagos shark. Not true. Galapagos shark is a little bit of an oddity-looking shark just because of the way the fins are. I think the dorsal fin sits a little bit too far forward of the way that it should, so it looks a little funky. But Galapagos shark, it's not the same thing, but they said it's, 7-foot shark. And I'm going to post a link that has the story in it. It's also going to have pictures of the fresh wound, pictures of the wound as it's sewn up, and pictures of the wound as a scar. So you'll be able to see all the stages of the leg wound that he ended up getting from a relatively small shark, but a large enough shark that it's going into our stats. It's an attack, not a predation. Okay, now we're going to head over to Umbaga-Twini, which is South Africa. The date is January 17th, 1985. Bruce Eldridge, 19 years old, doing some surfing. Him and a couple other friends are out having a good time. He's about 150 yards from shore in 6 to 10 feet of water, probably waiting on a wave. And it is 6:30 at night. Darkness is at 7, so it's dusk. Bad time to be out there doing this stuff. But anyway, so it's 6:30 at night, and he's waiting on a wave, and all of a sudden he's hit. He's hit on the leg, and all of a sudden the shark is trying to pull him down in the water backwards. It said that it spun his surfboard in a 360 and did take him and the surfboard under. His friend said when he looked over, he had seen the surfboard go under, and then when it popped back up, it looked like the shark was on his buddy's back. So he was behind his buddy, and it looked like he was on his back when he had him by the leg. He was able to hit the shark, kick the shark. Shark let him go, left him alone and took off. A friend came over to get him. He had pretty bad wound to his leg, took a big chunk out of the bottom of his leg, took a piece of his board, so the end of his board had a chunk off the board, chunk out of his calf. Nerve damage. They had to take him in. He ended up in shock. There was a problem with the ambulance. By the time he got in, he was in shock, but he did survive. Took him a month. He was in the hospital for a month on this one. Tooth fragments that were in the leg were from a great white. There were multiple tooth fragments in the leg. That is how they mostly determine what shark it is by tooth fragments in the leg. I always assumed they would, if they had a clean tooth entry into the body, they'd be able to judge from that. But apparently they usually go off of tooth fragments if they don't have a good identification from somebody else. It's an attack, not a predation, and we're going to move on. Okay, now we're going to stay in South Africa. We're going to go over to Morris Reef. The date is October 25th, 2015. Stuart Anderson, he's 42 years old, doing some surfing with friends. And he's laying on his board about 3 in the afternoon. He is 50 meters from shore. And it says laying on the board. He's not paddling, he's just laying there. Probably waiting on a wave, I'm thinking. And he had told a witness that he had never been hit. He's a bodybuilder. He had never been hit that hard in his life. Shark came up and obviously hit the bottom end of his board where his legs are. And he said at one point he could feel his foot in the shark's mouth. Now the shark bit his knee up, got his knee, got his calf, and his foot was in the mouth. So he probably rubbed his foot along the gummy area of the mouth. And because he said he could feel it in there, and he was just saying to himself, please don't bite down, because it would have taken his foot with him. Well, luckily the shark didn't bite down anymore. It released him and let him go. His friend, as soon as he saw it, his friend went over, was by some rocks, and as soon as he realized he was attacked, he abandoned his board, swam over to assist him in the shore. Got him in the shore, he got in and got help and got taken care of. They don't say, I think they said a 3.5 meter great white, they suspect. No tooth fragments in this one, so they were going by descriptions of witnesses that this was the usual, the 11-foot juvenile that came attacking a board, ended up getting him with it. So that's our story of Stuart Anderson. It's attack, non-predation. And now we're going to wind out our unprovoked attacks off the coast of California to Kibasilla Rock. The date is August 15, 2004. Randall Fry, also friends call him Randy, so Randy Fry, 50 years old, he and a friend, they've been abalone diving together for 30 years, and many times at this spot that they're going to, knowing that great white sharks are there, they just, they're aware of them and they're not going to worry about it, they're just going to do their diving. And on this day they go out and they're 150 yards from shore, 50 yards from their boat. Doesn't say the depth of the water. They're in a cove. The visibility is 10 to 15 feet. So it's pretty good visibility. You can see a little bit of a distance. They have one guy in the boat. His buddy Cliff Zimmerman is in the water with him, and the man on the boat is Red Bartley. They're in the water for 15 minutes, on top of the water, just chatting. Now, I always thought that being a diver, you're in that suit and you got those fins you want out of the top of the water as soon as possible. But they sat there and talked for 15 minutes on top of the water. And Randy decides he's going to go down first. So Randy dives down. Cliff looks down with his mask to see that Randy's got his hand, he puts his hand up, he's equalizing now his ears, so he's got his hand up by his head, and he sees he says he hears a whoosh. Now this is crazy, because these sharks have tentacles that make them silent in the water, so this shark was moving. Here's a whoosh and sees the dorsal fin, the shark, in between him and Randy's only about 5 feet, 6 feet away from him. So this shark came scooping in, and now Randy's gone. And it came probably full, they can do 35 miles an hour. I was probably doing full 30, 35 miles an hour as it took this guy. The friend said that he saw the dorsal fin. He couldn't tell what kind of shark it was, but that it was huge, big enough to kill. On board the boat, Red Bartley was yelling, so he must have saw the shark as it was approaching, because he's on the boat and he's always on the lookout for not only sharks but seals and sea lions, because sharks will be in the water but nothing was around. And he must have saw the shark, because he said it was over in about 5 seconds. He must have saw the shark coming. He said he was yelling and yelling, and then he saw, and it was done. The shark had just hit him and he was gone. So there was blood everywhere in the water. He quickly got Cliff out of the water, and they went to go get help. the next day they end up, now they say that the shark hit him in the throat. So now he's diving down and he's kind of upside down. So you got to imagine that shark's mouth open, probably those jaws, you know, the front jaws that extend when they take a bite, probably out, and hits him dead in the throat, they said. Well, the next day, the divers find his body in the area. It's around Fort Bragg, miles from Fort Bragg, but it's still in the area where he was at. They find the body, headless body. So that I don't even think that it bit down on him. I think it just took his head off, and because of the force of the speed, and took him away before it ended up ripping his head off. And they said it ripped his head off. So it takes his head off, and you know, they go ahead, they find the body, they deal with everything like that, and then 3 weeks later, a beachcomber finds his head. So I couldn't find anything to say that it, you know, the head was ever consumed, bitten, anything like that. I think it just was severed. That's what I think. The shark, you know, at 10 to 15 foot visibility gives it plenty of time to see that these are not seals. So, you know, it didn't want to eat them. I think it didn't want them in his area, and it was one of those territorial attacks. But it could be a mistaken identity. I'm thinking it's a seal. I'm not going to say I can think like a shark, but if you ask me, I'd think it's territorial. Didn't want them in the area and got what it wanted. As soon as it did what it did, everybody was gone. So that's our attack of Randy Fry. We're going to put down as an attack, no consume, and we'll get on with the end of the show. Okay, now we're going to finish off our show with What Were You Thinking? It's May of 2014. We're going to go over to Horizontal Falls, which is Kimberley, Australia. Rick Wright, he and his newlywed, they were together for 21 years. Judy's her name. They were together 21 years. They tied the knot, and they're doing some honeymooning. One of the things they decide to do is they're in a cage. They're in a shark cage, it sounds like, but it's waist high. So the water is shallow. It's waist high water, and they're in a cage, and they're around fish. And they said one of the fish is, there's some lemon sharks. They're told they're lemon sharks, 3.5 meter lemon sharks, which is pretty big lemon sharks. And he says they're patting him on the head. And the sharks are seeming to enjoy it. And he's enjoying it until a rogue, he calls it a rogue shark, comes over from the side and bites him in the hand. So bites him right in the fingers. And, you know, he's surprised. He can't believe that a non-man-eater shark would, you know, it's not a man-eater, it ain't going to bite him. Well, it did bite you, because man-eater or not, a shark will bite. What are you, an idiot? So anyway, Rick Wright ended up having to get his hand fixed up. I'm going to post a link to this story that has his, you know, his shock of, you know, a petted shark ended up biting him, and it'll talk about the rogue coming over. They'll have a picture of his hand with the fingers all bit up. And that'll be that. I appreciate all you being here. We're almost to 25,000 subs for the channel. We're just getting started. I mean, we got years of this to go. And I got to get back on the ball here and get these shows out every 2 or 3 days. So I'm going to try to get 2 to 3 shows out a week from now on for these. Got some special episodes coming up real quick. And that'll be it for this show. But I appreciate you all being here. And if you're going to go in that water, you are much more afraid of the sharks than they are of you.